When the life of a mighty beast you must take, you'll do well to show it respect before the final blow.
Gomen.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, honestly really encapsulates what Wild Hearts has done here. Hello everyone, and welcome to my full, proper review of Wild Hearts, a monster hunting game that has, well, reached far in its massive amounts of ambition, and while I think it's fallen just short, it's managed to do something all the same that is incredibly magical, incredibly engaging, and above all, and by far the most important thing, it is simply and deeply, satisfyingly, cravingly, addictingly fun. This, to put it in a sentence, feels like a really well-made monster hunting game. It does not feel like a Monster Hunter clone or rip-off, and I think that's a really important distinction, and I think it's impressive that I can say that. You all know how I feel about Monster Hunter. It's my joint favourite game series of all time, and I utterly adore it. So when you go into something like this, there is expectations, there is comparisons to be made, and make no mistake, there is lots in Wild Hearts that you will go, oh, that works like that from, yeah, okay, I know, I get you. Oh, that's like that from, yep, and that will happen, inevitably. But that's, in a lot of cases, in most cases, because it's hitting the notes of the genre it's trying to build, more than stepping on the shoulders of giants. But that said, there's nothing wrong with doing said shoulder stepping. It is how innovation happens, it is how competition is encouraged, and it is what fosters every game aiming for this kind of feel, this style, to evolve to even greater heights. And there is one thing that is certain: the existence of Wild Hearts is a good thing, both for its own merit, because again, it's so much fun, and because it will encourage growth in what I hope really does become a genre as strong as Souls-likes, but for monster hunting's likes. So let's get into the nitty-gritty specifics of all of this then. For me, there are three pillars that make a game like this work. You have the feel of it, the aesthetic, the creature design, the nature, the world, how it makes you, well, as I say, feel to be a part of it, to exist in it, to hunt in it. You have the loop. The kill thing, get its armor to make you stronger, to kill better thing to get its armor to make you stronger. The itch that you scratch when you get back to base and have new equipment to look after just beating a new Kemono for the first time before doing it all again. You know, the core gameplay. And then, finally, the actual hunt itself, the mechanics, the weapons, the movesets of both you and the Kemono, the monsters, how they interact. Does it, well, click? Or does it feel a little bit flat? And we will start with that latter one, as it's arguably the most important. It doesn't matter how well the system works, how pretty the game looks, how well the aesthetic lands, all of that doesn't matter if the actual, literal, you and your chosen weapon versus your chosen prey's moveset. And in that regard, yeah, it really has, for the most part, nailed it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it feels as good as Monster Hunter. It would be absurd to do so. Monster Hunter has had nearly 20 years of refining its formula. And, well, let's not look again at how janky the early Monster Hunter generations were. All that considered, what Wild Hearts has here is very impressive. Aesthetically, it just, yeah. Your moves look great, the Kemono's moves looks great, the enrage mechanic essentially changing the entire fight on its head is great. But what is especially great is how everything connects. I know full well it comes across as floaty without much impact when you watch this. In fact, Wild Hearts as a game is actually really hard to both show and convey. It's something that really does need to be played to be experienced, because when you do, it starts to really make a lot of sense and you get that feeling that you don't quite see there when you're just observing. And I went through that same thing. I've always felt as we led up to being able to play, yeah, it looks fun, it looks interesting, but I'm a little bit on how it all seems to actually be playing. But once you get in control, once you start landing the meaty hits, once you feel the monster reel away, when you really see how the mechanics infused the Karakuri, how the dodging feels, how the timings feel, it really is this beautiful trance that you fall into. And honestly, some of my most satisfying boss encounters that felt both challenging and fair and a big yes to actually beat have been found in Wild Hearts. And that is something I'm very glad to be able to say. Basically, applying your weapon's moveset to and to counter Kemono's moveset is a good, solid 8 to 9 out of 10. And even in my specific current favorite weapon, the Nodachi example, yeah, I really, really enjoy the crush. And you know I love my big swords, and this really does give me the same kind of feelings that Greatsword does. Then it's hard to talk about the actual hunt without talking about, well, the unique selling point of Wild Hearts, the Karakuri. The constructing blocks that all do different and useful things that you can build on the fly, anywhere on the map while fighting, and really, I am surprised at how smooth it feels. I thought it would be janky, I thought it would get in the way, I thought I'd be like, I'd rather just hunt without them, but the way to look at them is simply an extension of your weapon's moveset. They stand in for the likes of flash bombs and pitfall traps. You don't need to bring a sack full of items with you, there's no item bar to scroll through, that's kind of cut away, it's been trimmed, and it surprisingly feels really good that way. Not having to do this huge crafting prep session per hunt, not that it's a bad thing, that makes you feel like a prepared hunter and it does work, but it's not used here and it doesn't feel like it's missing. Instead, that whole aspect comes from the Karakuri, learning the patterns to combine them into fusion Karakuri, to create pitfall traps, to create flash bombs, to create anchors that tether monsters to the floor, to create walls to block their charges. It feels very dynamic and you really have to think on your feet without it just being, well, a building simulator, because it really ends up not being that. Essentially, a hunter's bag of tricks in this game is represented by the Karakuri and the conjuring of them. And it flows, as I said, as simply an extension of your moveset that you can smoothly do while using your weapon to its fullest potential.
So here's this giant enemy crab.
And then we have the Dragon Karakuri. These are powered by dragon pits around the map that you find and activate. You upgrade them. Essentially they act as generators that give you one of 5 resources that let you place down more permanent fixtures that will stay there forever. Even if they get destroyed, they will get rebuilt when what destroys them leaves the zones. You can do this to create your own camps in locations you want. You can set your map up and traversal however you want. You can create this insane flying vine network to never have to run anywhere again if you want. Everyone's map will be different, and that creates this fun dynamic in multiplayer too, where you join someone's hunt, join someone's session, and then you get to see how they've done it, and that may either inspire you or make you feel rather smugly superior at how you've placed your Dragon Karakuri. There is flavor ones from just aesthetic objects that make the place look nice, to more practical useful ones like the literal radar that shows you where the Kemono are that connect in a network around the map where you've placed them. There is forges you can put down to change equipment during the hunt or even craft during the hunt. There is resource gathering huts that you can set up either on the map or in Minato, the home base. You can capture small animals, these creatures, place them in the little pens that you've made for them, and then not only do you have, that fun pet aspect, they give you useful materials. It ties into the food system, giving you various tools to create stronger and better and higher buffing food that then has this visual detail of actually being there hanging off it as it processes. There really is a lot going on, and everything feels like it's covered. The Karakuri tree is massive, but it's intuitive, and you kind of get an idea of what you want to go for, what you want to improve, and it essentially powers the whole engine of the game from both a mechanical standpoint, a flavor standpoint, and an aesthetic standpoint. The story itself is tied to it. You get this Karakuri seed placed in you, and exploring what that means for you and for the world that has long since lost the power of Karakuri that you're reviving, well, is what gets you to chapter. And chapter to chapter is how it works. Every chapter of the story can be accessed from the map like a moment in time. I won't go past chapter 2, I don't want to spoil you here, but you can flip back and forth between the chapters and experience the Kemono, the world, as it was at that point in the story when you were in that chapter. And that actually works very well to let you do everything you need to without making it feel weird or jarring or narratively breaking. And the narrative itself is fine, right? It gets you from A to B, you want to kind of know what happens, but you're not going to be sat there at the edge of your seat. The NPCs are hit or miss for me, the voice acting is hit or miss for me, but it really isn't the point, and it certainly doesn't take away from anything as a whole. The hub town of Minato is great. It's large, it's sprawling, it's very pretty to look at, there's lots of little hidden secrets and Easter eggs to find and do, and thanks to Dragon Karakuri, you can change it and make it your own however you like. And that's really nice too. You have as well the fact that this place actually feels alive in a sense that Monster Hunter towns never quite have managed yet, because it changes. As the chapters progress, as story beats happen, it changes. An easy example is at one point you do something big and impressive and they throw a festival for you. And then all the NPCs are up on the top layer having the festival, you can talk to them, you can experience it, the town is changed. And you get to live in that before it goes back to air quotes normal. Though even then, normal changes. There will be points where, for a reason again I won't say, a whole building and buildings can get destroyed and they don't come back because they're destroyed, and you've now got more space to work with in the town for your Karakuri, and so on and so forth. And change and evolving and the nature of things really does play into the themes of the game. And change in nature applies to the maps too. This is normally a tropical beach sunny locale representing the summer map. But the Kemono are real forces of nature here, and if an ice Kemono is around, well, look what's happened. The beach covered in snow, the water frozen, the normal sunlight replaced by snow falling. Is that not a really amazing touch that really sells the experience? Because I love that stuff. I love that you have an encyclopedia showing all the Kemono, all the small Kemono, giving you information on them, flavor, lore, ecology, the creatures too. I love the fact that when it comes to getting materials from a small Kemono, you can sneak up on them and you can either just, straight murder them, or you can pet them, befriend them, and they will give you a gift for your favor. And these items are different. Certain armor and weapons will require you to either kill small Kemono or befriend them to get the right resource. That's just a little bit extra, and that's really neat. Resource gathering in general is very straightforward. You just run around the map and pick stuff up. Though it is here where one of my first kind of major problems lie, in that there's really not a very good way of knowing what resources come from where. There's nothing to help you with that. There's no resource guide or locations of them. And by that I mean specific locations. It does generically show you where the nodes of resources are on the map, but not what each one is. So you may find yourself at points being like, I need, what the fuck is demon ore? Where is demon ore from? I've got no idea where demon ore is from. And the game kind of goes, good luck with that. And that's a little bit frustrating, and I hope that eventually that might get addressed. But you've been on the maps, you've killed the Kemono, you've got your resources. Of course, what you do with it then is make the armor and make the weapons. There is 8 weapons to choose from. All of them feel very unique, very themselves. Yes, a lot of them you can draw direct comparisons. The Nodachi feels very greatsword, but it's got its own rhythm to it. You can move while charging, you can attack while charging. And the thing is, Wild Hearts is very much about iframing through attacks rather than evading them through spacing, at least for a lot of the weapons, and that really comes across in how everything plays. The armor itself, aesthetically, is another one of my issues, but it's a very personal one. I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetic of fantasy, feudal Japan, that kind of thing, and a lot of the armor really go for that. I feel like I would much prefer it if the armor was much more based on the monster that you killed to get it, than sort of just slightly influenced by it. There are some really cool sets, but only a couple for me, and this also kind of applies to the weapons. There are a few that are just really badass, but I think the bulk of them are a little bit, that's just fine, I suppose. Oh, and yes, there is layered armor, but you really have to work for it. A lot of materials go into it, which I kind of like, because it makes it feel much more special when you actually get your ideal look. The skill system. It's not as deep, it's not as complex as Monster Hunter, but I also feel like that is refreshing in its own way, because it makes it much more understandable what you want. The armor sets themselves just have a few skills on each of the pieces, and you can very easily choose which ones you need. There's no like connecting them together to get a certain amount of ranks of something. There's just the skills, and you have them. You can get more than one lot of a skill, but it's not unlocking ranks and building it like bricks to have this final complete set that all flows together. Though that said, synergy is there, and you do end up having a build that flows together, just not in the sense that you're imagining it. The weapons, however, in how they work, is where that complexity and that challenge come in. Because when you upgrade a weapon, there is an inherent bonus, which is only while you have it on that tier of weapon, and then an inherited one. Inherited ones you can take with you to the next upgrade in the tree, and you can have up to 5. So you see where this goes. You end up plotting a path round the tree like a spider web to grab the 5 perfect inherited passive skills before ending up at your ideal weapon with the inherent skill that you want. And while it might feel a bit really, you have to kind of make like 16 weapons and go up and down instead of just going straight to what you want, that makes it much more meaningful when you get there. You can just go straight there and have a strong enough weapon. You don't need to min-max. But the reward for min-maxing here is very satisfying, not only in the result and the power of your weapon, but how much time and effort and care goes into doing it. And in terms of reward, the game is fairly challenging. I didn't find it crazy hard. We didn't have a full-on hunt fail until, I don't know, like the 15th Kemono in, but at the same time, I'm also very experienced in Monster Hunter, Souls, and general dodge roll the boss while hitting it. So your mileage may vary on that, but I don't at any point think anything was either like bullshit. Everything felt fair, the movesets felt well thought out, and it was just a stern challenge. You can't drop the ball, but it's so exceedingly learnable, and there really is a great amount of reward for going through that learning curve. And ultimately, what it comes down to, again, is it's fun. It is satisfying to go out, to hunt the Kemono, to get its resources, to make its weapons and equipment, to see the story progress, and to do it all again, to find out what the next step is, to enjoy the next Kemono, to see the next armor set. It all just makes you want more. From the Karakuri 2, as you unlock down the tree, there's no part of this game that doesn't encourage you and really instill that need to see the rest of this game. And that's really what you want here. You want that addictive feeling that a Monster Hunter-esque game gives you, because it works in that cycle of do more but better, then do more but better, then do more but better, and that firmly does grip you here. And it doesn't hurt that the entire game is smoothly playable in multiplayer without any interruptions or anything. You do cutscenes together, and that's a really feel-good thing in a game like this. Again, is it as good as Monster Hunter? Of course not. That would be a miracle if it was. It has jank, there's some rough edges, the camera goes mental sometimes, a few of the weapons have their moments where they just straight up break, there's a couple bugs here and there, some of the textures don't quite work, some of the aesthetics, they look a little bit low compared to some others where you notice a stark difference, but for the most part, everything is there. It's like 90% instead of 100% if you want to put it that way. The maps are big and varied and beautiful in a lot of places, and everything really does come together. It's not perfect by any means, but everywhere that it falls short, it does so for clear reaching too far. It is a victim of ambition. What is clear here is there is care, there is passion, there is detail put into this. The people that made this game thought about it, and they clearly loved what they were doing. And while I think they tried to do a little bit too much, and that has resulted in, as I say, some rough edges, I would rather that than a lazy clone that does nothing new, feels rushed, and generally just kind of leaves a stale taste in your mouth. This really might be flying too close to the sun, but by God, in doing so, does it burn bright. And in my opinion, if you at all like Monster Hunter, I would find it very strange if you did not have a great time with Wild Hearts, even if at times it certainly does show that it is not, in fact, Monster Hunter. But that's also its strength, because again, we want more monster hunting games, and never until this point has one come out that I think could genuinely put up competition, be worthy in its own right, have a hunting experience that sometimes I will feel like having over Monster Hunter's hunting experience. And at no point did I think I would say that going in. Essentially then, a game with a good amount of issues, but a game where those issues mean nothing in the face of just how enjoyable it is. Let me know what you guys think if you do jump in. I hope that you have enjoyed this little review, or at least my feelings on it all. Of course, I like to look at the positives, but really, there isn't anything that stands out and goes, oh, because for me, the Kemono monster design is fucking amazing, and really past that, that's my number one thing in a Monster Hunter game. The animals that you face both feel like animals, but also, you know, mighty, satisfying, powerful entities, and oh, that is nailed here. It really, really is, and there's some really awesome twists and surprises, and a lot, like 22 Kemono, as you go through the game. There's a equivalent of like a low-rank, high-rank split, but I don't want to say too much more, because I just want you to explore and enjoy it. So for now, like if you have enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, and please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. Until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.